Okay.
Right. So, sorry, I want to start it from. Yeah, this is what we learned the last slide. What we learned. Let's move it from there on. So, what are the key features of a risk management strategy? Right. The key features. If the moment you have a risk management strategy, the organization should spell out their attitude towards the risk. So that is the responsibility of the board of directors. They must spell out what are their attitude towards the risk. And that is very important. So the people, the organization will know what is their attitude towards the risk. Then the risk appetite of the organization. Remember, we were discussing the risk appetite. Risk appetite is made up of two components, risk capacity and risk attitude. So the board of directors must tell what is the risk appetite, so that the other people at the lower level, at the management level, will know, okay, yes, this is the risk appetite, so we can take this risk, we cannot take that risk, kind of a thing. Then the objectives of a risk management strategy.
Okay.
Why are we having a risk management strategy? What for? So that also people should know, because the risk management is, as I said, is a comparatively a new subject. It was not there 20 years back, 30 years back, right? In a way like what we are having it today. But so the organization should spell out why they have a risk management strategy. And then the behavior expected of the people towards the risk. So the culture of the organization, from the top to the bottom, from the bottom to the top, people should have in their blood running about the risk, all the time thinking about the risk, all the time thinking how to avoid risk, all the time thinking how to take advantage of any opportunity. And the board is responsible towards the risk management, but surely the management is the people who are going to introduce the risk management strategy, so they also must know their responsibility. And then you must have a way of measuring the effectiveness of risk management all the time. So, to do this thing, we have a model, what we call the CIMA risk management cycle, which is most of the time tested in our examinations, the CIMA risk management cycle. So, to manage the risk in any organization, you have to have a risk management group. Risk management.
Sorry, come on.
Yeah.
A quick question.
Yeah.
Is this new? Is this new to the syllabus? The CIMA risk management cycle?
It was there all the time.
Okay.
It was there. There are two risk management models. It was there, and in the recent past, they have been starting to test on this area.
Okay.
Right. So actually, it's a very formal one. Most of us, we do it, although we don't call it CIMA risk management cycle. But the CIMA has put up a very formal one, which is being practiced in different ways in most of the companies. So first starting point is, you must have the risk management group. Because the risk management, we know it is the responsibility of everyone. But we must have a particular group who are really, given the task of overlooking the risk management, I would say. So who are the people who should be in the risk management group? Right. So first of all, the finance head or finance representative should be in the risk management group. Why? You may take a risk, I may take a risk. Ultimately, whoever who takes a risk, it ends up in the financial statements. The cash flow can get affected, the statement of financial position may get affected. So because of that, the finance has a key role to play in the risk management. So finance head or whoever should be included in the risk management group. Then another area that has a big risk or probably things can go wrong is your sales. Right? Because most of your, ultimately, everything will depend on your sales. You can produce, you can do everything, but if the sales are not going to happen. So the sales people, the head of the sales or the sales director should be part of the risk management group. Then the planners, the people who are planning, in your P1 time, you would have probably come across what we call the planning variances. if you plan things wrongly, if you put up the wrong targets, or sometimes you may put up the right target, but the things will change, and therefore the plans will have to change. So the planners will have to be in the risk management group. So finance, sales, planning, almost compulsory. Then some other operational people. Maybe if the IT is a very important area, the IT head or IT people. Right? So like that, there will be people. And ideally, it should be headed by one of the non-executive directors. It doesn't matter. It can be led by one of the executive directors, but it's good so to have that little bit of more independency, a little bit of more output from the external environment. Good if you have a NED. Always there's a question whether the internal audit of the firm, whether he should be included in the risk management group or not. What do you think? Internal auditor of the organization. Should we put him in the risk management group, or should we keep him out of the risk management?
No, it'd be good governance to keep him in.
To keep him in. Yeah. Because in a way, because his main job is also to review every area, isn't it? Right? Yeah. He's the man who is going to come to your finance division and review whether the controls are working. He's the man who is going to go into the sales and to see whether the controls are working. So he is a man who is going to review anything independently, anything and everything independently. So the risk management group is also reviewing. So from that angle, it's good to include him as part of the risk management committee. But there's another school of thought. Another school of thought is that we should not include him. Because if he's included, he cannot review the function of the risk management group when he's part of it. You got the point? Yeah. So there's another school of thought thinking he should not be included in the risk management group. He must be kept outside so he can even review the risk management group's effectiveness. So both schools of thoughts are right. There's nothing wrong, nothing saying, he should be included or he should not be included. It all depends on how are you going to argue it. So these are the key people who probably will be in the risk management group. So that's something that we will be wanting to look at. Now I have put the CIMA risk management cycle. Right? So the CIMA risk management cycle, the risk management group, they are the key people. So you can see there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 circles, outer circle. Will you give me a second, Magen?
Yep.
Hello? 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 Sorry, my dear, it's all right. Right. So, we were talking about the risk management group. You can see there are 6 cycles. Identify risk areas, assess scale of risk, development of risk response strategy, implement strategy. Hold on for a second again.
Okay.
Hello? Apa ada nak cakap mana? Apa nak cakap? දැන් නෑ පාදලස වැහුව අපි කොම්පැනිය ඒක මේ කියන්නේ ඉඩම වික්කා දැන් ඉතින් වෙනකොට අපි මාරු මේ කියන්නේ හොය ඉන්නවා යන්න කියලා මේ ඉඩම වික්කා මේ අරවින්ද ගත්ත ඉඩම එයාගේ මොකද්ද බිස්නස් එකට ඉතින් දැන් මේ ටික ඔක්කොම නවත්තලා තියෙන්නේ අර මේගොල්ලෝ ළඟ තියෙන රත්නාවේ තියෙනවා මේ කොහෙද මේ මාලිකාවත් පාරේ තියෙනවා මොනවාද මේ ඒගොල්ලන්ගේ හොඳයි මැස්කන්ද මොනවාද කියලා ඒගොල්ලන්ගේ තියෙන ඔක්කොම ටික මේ Korean එක තමයි හොඳයි. Korean එක තමයි හොඳයි. මම ඔය හෙටපට පදවස මම ගණන් පොඩක් ඕනනම් අහලා කියන්න. ඔව්. right, sure, right. මම හෙට අහලා කියන්න ගණන් නම්. ඒක බලාගන්න පුළුවන්. Right, okay වදන. Right, okay, right. Sorry. Right. So you can see there are 6 elements in this whole thing. Right? Hello?
Yes.
Yeah. There are six elements in this whole CIMA risk management strategy. So basically the 6 plus the risk management group, you can assume there are 7 elements altogether in the risk management CIMA thing. So there are 7 things: risk management group, identification of the risk, assess scale of risk, development of risk strategy, implement and allocate the responsibilities, implement and monitor the controls, and finally the review and refine, and that is what the risk management strategy. Your risk management group should be identifying all the risk that is connected with your business strategy. So you must be thinking of all what is going to have an impact upon your business, and look at all the areas that is going to have a impact upon your business strategy. So the number 1, you put up the risk management group. Number 2, that group should be identifying the risk area. Now, how do you identify the risky area for you in an organization? How do you know that this particular thing can become a risk for me? What will you do? How to get that? How to know that the risks are being identified? Yes.
From previous knowledge and just the investigational work.
Yeah, right. From a previous knowledge is one way, right? But you can also get the customer feedback will give you some indication of whether they are happy with your product or not, isn't it?
Yeah, that's what I said. Investigational work.
Yeah, right. Yeah, the surveys, the employee surveys to see whether the employees are okay with you, right? Then the competitor information will give you something. So we have to have a brainstorming. So many ways are there for you to find out the risk that can have an impact upon you. So that is what this risk management group should do along with the line managers. The people in the finance division with the risk management group should find out the risky areas for the finance division. People in the HR department with the risk management group will find out the risk in the HR department, and so on and so forth. Once the risks are identified, the CIMA cycle says the next thing is you must assess the scale of risk. How big is the risk? So that is done on 2 criteria. One is the impact. If that particular situation happens, what is the impact going to be? Is it big? Is it going to be small? Then the frequency or the probability of it happening. Right? What is the chance that it will happen and the risk will take place? So that is what we call the frequency or probability. So you have to assess the scale of risk accordingly. And then once you do that one, what is the next thing you have to do? Depending on the bigness of the risk, depending on the frequency of that particular risk happening, you probably, not that probably, you have to work out a risk response strategy. Risk response strategy. So what is your risk response strategy going to be? There are 4 responses, yes?
Transfer, avoid,
reduce, exit. Transfer, avoid, reduce, exit. That is what we call TARA. Transfer, avoid, reduce, and exit. So one of those will be your strategy all the time for any risk. Either you transfer the risk, or you avoid the risk, or you reduce the risk, or you accept the risk. Transfer means you basically go for something like insurance. Avoid means you just don't do anything about it. Except the reduce means you put all the controls. The internal controls will come and look after that part of it. Accept means you live with it. That is why. So once you develop the risk response strategy, or once you identify a scale, and once you develop the risk response strategy, next thing is to have to implement your strategy. Implement the strategy. What do you mean by implementing the strategy? What do you mean?
Putting the strategy into place.
Yeah, into place.
Like basically
the communication. You have to communicate, right? Now we decide, okay, Majid, you must take insurance cover. So we must communicate that to you and say, Majid, you must take insurance cover, and allocate that responsibility to you so that you know exactly what is expected to do. So that is what we call implementation of the strategy. And then once you implement anything, the next thing is it must be monitored to see whether it is happening. If you don't implement and if you don't monitor, things are not going to happen in the business world, in the human world. You have to monitor. And once you monitor, you might find some of the things are happening well, some other things are not happening. So you review and refine. So whatever the modifications you need to do it, you will do it, and it will continue. So that is why we call it a cycle. It's a process. It's a continuous process. And for all this, what you require is information. At every level, you need information. To identify risk, you need information. To assess the scale of risk, you need information. To develop the risk response strategy, you need information. To implement, you need information. To monitor, you need information. And to review and refine, you need information. It can be two ways. Either, all the time you need information. So this is what the CIMA risk management cycle is all about. So you form the risk management group, then identify the risk, that is the number 2, assess scale of risk, number 3, development of risk response strategy, number 4, implement, number 5, monitor, number 6, review and refine, number 7. So these are the 7 elements in your risk management strategy, which we will have to completely be aware and apply. So that is what we call the CIMA risk management. It must be linked with your business strategy. Then another model is, I don't know whether you have come across this one, this is called the enterprise risk management or COSO risk management model. Enterprise.
Yeah, I came across this.
Right. Enterprise risk management or
So, but it's pretty similar to the CIMA risk.
Almost similar. Two different models. I don't think there is any big thing in the whole thing. Only thing is it goes on. It goes on what they call 8 elements.
Yeah, and it also goes into like basically cost center detail of like the structures of the organization.
That's correct. It covers up the entire organization, and it goes into the entire organization and it covers up every kind of risk. So it's a more, I would say it's a more rather comprehensive one. So internal environment. So that is what they are going to look at. So one criticism that has been laid about the COSO model is that it is focusing very much on the internal environment. It looks at the internally, the people who are there, the structures which are there, and what risk those structures will bring you, right? So that is number 1. Then number 2, the risk management is linked with the objective setting, like the CIMA again. Number 3, event identification. That was the number 2 in the CIMA model. You identify all possible risks.
Yeah.
Number 4, risk assessment, same as the CIMA.
Next one is risk.
Yeah, risk response, the same as CIMA.
And then risk response.
Then the control activities. The control activities is something different in, because not there very much in the other one. It's all about the policies and procedures. What policies, what procedures you have inside your company. Right? And then information and communication, just like the CIMA. And finally, the monitoring. And the risks that they are looking, it covers up the entire spectrum of risk, strategic, at operational level, at reporting level, and also at compliance level. So this is the way that they classify the risk. You remember we categorized the risk earlier: financial risk, environmental risk, political risk, etc. But these people are categorized on strategic operational reporting compliance, which is right. Right? Both are right. So this covers up the entire spectrum of risk. Strategic risk, most is the risk that arises from the decisions taken by the board of directors. Operational risk, it is a risk that arises on day-to-day transactions. Reported risk is almost with your external and internal reporting, right? You give a false or a wrong set of financial statements to the stock exchange, you have a big risk. Even internally, if your management information is wrong, you will make wrong decisions. So I remember in my own company, recently we bought some imported stuff and the accountant prepared a statement and showed a particular cost, and based on the cost we added the markup and we went to the market and the goods got sold within like hotcakes within 1 or 2 days. And we were very happy, everyone was very happy, and we thought that we had made a big gross profit also. So we were commending the people who have bought the goods, who have sold the goods, everything. But one day the accountant walks into my room scratching his head and he says, "Sir, you have made a mistake." What? He has not included the VAT, or he has not excluded the VAT from the sale price. So when you remove the VAT, your GP is coming down to something like 10% or something like that. Normally, it should be 30% or 25%. So by wrong management information, big risk, ultimately, it was a loss deal for us, even though we thought it was a profit deal. So reporting is a very, very important area. Compliances. If organization does not comply with all compliances that you have to do, environmental, whatever it may be, you are in trouble. And this model goes to different levels. Entity level, it goes to different levels, entity level, and then divisional level, business unit level, and subsidiary level. So it covers up the entire. So this is what the COSO model of the risk management is all about. So you can, as you rightly said, it's almost identical to the CIMA model, slight differences here and there. So the criticisms that it lays against the COSO model is, it starts with the internal. Out of the elements, the first thing is internal and not external. And what they say is, most of the risks come from the external, not really from the internal. Not that it is not really from the internal, but there are risks from the external which is not being considered in the COSO model. That is what it says. Then the next criticism that they are putting up against the COSO model is emphasizes on sudden changes, because it is looking on a... Hello? Hello, Majid? Hello? Hi, hello? Hello?
Yeah, I can hear you now. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Right. Yes. Right. So I was talking about the COSO model. One thing is about it is emphasis on sudden change. But you and I know in business there can be certain risks that arises over a period of time. Slowly. You may find an employee, a behavior slowly changing. So that kind of a risk is not addressed in that model. So that is what one criticism they have put it up. Then it's a single outcome risk material. It is looking again from a single particular point of view. So that's another one. No focus on the stakeholder influence. You and I know stakeholders can create a risk for us. Customers, employees, suppliers, they can create a risk for us. But that is not addressed in the COSO model. So these are some of the criticisms that is being placed against the COSO model. So I want to talk about the risk and event identification. So one thing we have to understand, if a person says or the examiner says it's a zero risk situation, it's a lie. We never have a zero risk situation. We always live with risk. And the important thing is we have to be aware that a risk exists. If you don't know that a risk exists, you are in real crisis. So I have a little grandson. When the fellow comes, he doesn't know that if he goes and touch a candle, that it is going to burn his finger. So every time whenever there's a birthday party or something like that, when the candles are light, the fellow wants to go and touch the thing because he doesn't know that there's a rain. Right? So similarly, in the business world, if you don't know that we are facing risk, you are in real crisis. So because of that, you must be aware of the risk. And there are certain risks which we call familiar risk. Familiar risk, which is we know day to day, it can happen, it may not happen, that kind of a thing. But you have to be aware there can be unfamiliar risk. Can you think of any unfamiliar risk in our organization? Something which you never expected to happen. Can you think? That's what we call unfamiliar risk. Something which you did not expect to happen, but it has happened. Can you think of anything like that? Yeah?
Yes.
Any unfamiliar risk? You're working, let's assume that you're working with one of your partners, a trusted man with whom you have been dealing for a long time. Suddenly, you find that your friend, your partner has defrauded you. Now, that's an unfamiliar risk. Something which you never planned for. Something which you never thought of. That can happen. Yeah? That can happen. And that's a big risk. That's a big risk. That kind of a risk, you are not ready for that risk. So, yesterday we had this presidential election. The rival candidate for the incumbent president was his own party, the general secretary. The day before the nomination, he was having dinner, both the people are having dinner together. And the next morning, the man who was his key man, the right-hand man, said, I'm going to contest you. The president was not ready for it. It was a shock for him. And ultimately, he lost the election yesterday because he was not ready to contest one of his colleagues. And it can happen to you and me. So, unfamiliar risk. And risk identification, we have to understand it's a process, it's a continuous process. And how we identify the risk is, as we discussed earlier, inquiries, check-in, brainstorming, checklist, benchmarking, PES, SWOT, and even things like physical inspection. That is why we go and do a physical verification. So there was a question in CIMA P3. The internal auditors went to a particular school, the music department, and they went and checked physically the musical instrument. And they found one or two instruments not there. To see, some of the teachers have taken them to their homes and they were using it for 2 years, 3 years there. So, those risks can be there unless you physically do it. So, that is what I think you also said, your own experiences, your own observations are very important. So, that is what we call risk and event identification. So, the risk response strategy we have discussed already: transfer, avoid, reduce, and exit. So, these are the 4 risk response strategy. So, remember this girl Tara and you will have it. Finally, I want to put up the risk mapping. So, we know whatever we do, the risk can be of a high impact or it can be of a low impact. Certain risks, like in the petty cash, you can have a fraud, but the impact may not be very big. But if you make a big mistake in your calculations or something in a big $1 million contract, the impact can be high. So your risk can have a low impact, it can be a high impact. And the probability of it happening, it could be low, it could be high. So depending on these 4 grids, you will decide your risk response strategy. So if it is high impact, low probability, this is the risk that you will transfer. That is why we take vehicle insurance. An accident, the impact could be very high, but the probability of it happening is not so much. So we take an insurance cover and we transfer it. High impact, high probability, surely we want to avoid it. Very high impact, very high probability of it happening, we want to avoid it. Next one is low impact, high probability. Low impact, little impacts, but big probability of things happening. This is what we try to reduce by internal controls. By putting other controls, we try to remove that one. And then we have the low impact, high probability. Right? Low impact, high probability. And that is low impact, low probability. Those are the things we will just accept it. Nothing much of a big impact, nothing much of a big probability of it happening. We will accept it. So this is your risk response pattern. So risk mapping, to put it in another way, this is a new thing the CIMA has put it up. It's on the vertical you get the impact, and on the horizontal you get the probability. So you can see the green line is the no risk area, low probability, low impact. So that's basically, even though they call it no risk, I don't think there's anything called no risk. Probability low risk, low probability, low impact. So that's not an area that we are wanting to really focus very much. Then we have a somewhere mid probability and a mid impact. So that are the areas that probably we want to focus. But the big priority area will be high impact, high probability. High impact, high probability. I want to go into that area and see whether it is all right. Should I avoid it, or what should I do with high impact, high probability? So I think with that we are into that risk management, the big area. So you will see later on, almost all your other part of the story will be based on this subject what we just now finished it up. The whole thing is risk management, as I've been always telling. So this is what. Shall we look at some other questions, again, just to get a quick idea?
Yeah. Kumar,
yeah.
Have they released the O2 questions yet? The OT questions yet, or do you know the actual booklet? Have they released that yet or not?
Kaplan have put up a booklet.
Okay.
Kaplan, only thing, they don't have any PDF booklets or this thing. I mean. E-booklet. They have the textbook, and the textbook you can put it once you take the printed book, you can put it on the screen. I mean the code, they will put a secret code. Once you put that on, you probably will be able to get it on the computer screen.
Okay.
So I bought the books yesterday, reviewed today. I just put it the application for the online. So let's see how it is going to come up. But at the moment, I'm using some of the OT questions from the various sites. Ashwanti has put up something. So I bought some of the questions also. So I have few questions which I have taken from others, even my own ones, and I'm using some of those questions. So even yesterday, what we did, the formulation of financial strategy, are questions that, the likely questions that can come up in the exam.
Okay.
So let's look at some of these questions. So these are the typical kind of questions that can come up in your paper. So let's look at some of these questions and see. Again, as I said, this is just for us to get our knowledge more intensified, so that we know that this is the type of thing that we should be ready in the exam. Can you see the screen now?
Yes.
Yeah. So shall we look at some of these questions? So, Y Limited is a manufacturer of domestic appliances. It has a large long-term contract to sell its product to a company in country A. Country A's currency is Z dollars. Inflation in country is very high and is forecast to increase rapidly over the next few years. Y Limited is concerned about the effect of this will have on your exchange rate. So, what type of a risk is Y concerned with? That is what the question is. So they are given what type of a risk, what type of risk Y is concerned with. So they are given environmental risk, financial risk, business risk, and reputational risk.
It's finance risk.
Yeah, I think it's a financial risk because the exchange risk is part of the financial risk, right?
Yeah.
So
the other one it could potentially be is environmental risk as well, because it's the actual environment that keeps changing as well.
Yeah.
So with the pestle stuff like political, economic,
right,
social.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So actually the answer is the financial risk here, because the question is what type of risk is Y Limited concerned about. So
I was saying if
yeah,
I was saying if financial risk wasn't there, then it'd probably be environmental.
Surely. Yeah. You're right. Because since you're asking one, I think the answer is the financial risk. So now that is what you should be looking at the exam and trying to. So let's look at the second one. So X Limited manufactures very large, expensive, fast sport cars. The following risk and their possible mitigations have been in the table below. Match the following risk with their mitigation using the TARA to select. So the first one is environmental concerns could mean that customers will want only small and economic cars. So the response, we have to decide whether we should transfer, avoid, reduce, and accept. So just try to pick up the scenario. Here we have a company manufacturing very large, expensive, fast sport cars. So they are surely going into the upmarket. The following risk and their possible mitigation. So the risk management strategy is given. So one of the risks is environmental concerns could mean that customers will want only small and economic cars. What will you do? What will you do? You are a company that is manufacturing very large, expensive, fast sport cars. But there's an environmental concern that could mean the customers will only want small and economical cars. What are you going to do?
Try and reduce.
How can you reduce now? Can you reduce that one? Now that is the thing, because reducing is something which you can do if it is something internal, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean,
if it is something internal.
The only reason why I suggested reduce was like maybe producing a car.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. But
then again, if it's a fast sports car, then it's highly unlikely.
Yeah, you have no control, because now you have to think like this, Majid. Your infrastructure, you have already decided to produce these fast sport cars, right? But the environmental concern says that the customers will want only small and economic cars. So already you have invested money, you have targeted the market. What can you do? What can you do? You can't transfer, you can't avoid, you can't even reduce, I think you have to accept it. Isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah? You have to accept it, because there is nothing that you can do about it. Because you have already structured. If you are really thinking in terms of going to the market, then it's a different story. Then you will avoid probably. But here, you are a manufacturer, expensive fast sport cars. So, but the society says that they want small cars. You can't do anything too much about it. So you have to accept the risk. Second one, a customer or a third party could be killed or injured because of the sheer power of the cars, making them difficult to drive safely. You are manufacturing these cars, right? Naturally, the sport car means a powerful car. It could kill a person or injure another person because of the power of the car, making them difficult to drive safely. What will you do?
You try and avoid it at all costs, because it'd be really bad for reputation if something like that was to happen.
Yes.
But you try and reduce it. So basically making the product better, safer, testing it.
I also believe the reducing is the right thing, because not only, you can do all that, you can make the drivers aware, right? Through educational programs, through awareness programs, make the driver aware that it's a high power car, and therefore that they must drive carefully and all that kind of a thing. But you can't avoid it because it's a fast car. You can't give a fast car and ask me to drive it slowly, but you can reduce the risk by making the drivers and the society aware. Isn't it?
Yes.
I also believe the reducing is the right thing to do it there. Next one. Environmental legislation in California could mean that all cars sold in the state must meet emissions and fuel economy standards that would be impossible to achieve with a car of this type. So the regulator is trying to tell you all cars sold in state must meet emissions and fuel economy standards, right? That would be impossible to achieve with a car of this type. So what will you do? Sorry, the third one. A customer or third party could be killed or injured because of a manufacturing fault leading to an accident. A customer or a third party could be killed or injured because of a manufacturing fault leading to an accident. You have put the car into the market, but because of a manufacturing fault, it could kill a person. What can you do? You have already put the car into the market. The car is already in the market. So there is a chance that something manufacturing, because you can take all the precautions, but still for all, you might set the vehicle to the market with a factory defect. And the breakdown system won't apply and kills a person. What can you do? Anything else you can? Yeah?
Maybe transfer?
Yeah, that is what you do normally. We take an insurance cover against our manufacturing defects, against our negligence, whatever. We can take an insurance. So that if something happens, if the company, if the injured party claims it, the insurer will pay for you. And that is what we do, because in business we have certain risks. We have to take those risks, but we take the risk and then we transfer the risk. Look at the doctors. They take the professional medical negligence cover. Right? Most of these shops, they have this cover taken up against the customer injuries and accidents and all that kind of a thing. So that way you can cover it up. So I think that is a risk that you will transfer. The fourth one, environmental legislation in California will do that all cars sold in the state must meet emissions and fuel standards that would be impossible to achieve with a car of this type. What will you do?
You try and avoid.
Yeah, because you don't want to go to that market, because you can't meet those requirements. It is impossible, right? It is impossible means it's impossible. That means you avoid it, because there is nothing that I can do about it. Going into that kind of a market and trying to sell the vehicle. That is what you should be looking at. So like that, you have to argue it within yourself and decide what are you going to do with. Right. So let's look at the third one. Which of the following statement is true? Risk is only about things going wrong. Risk is something new we need to understand. Only big enterprises need to concern themselves with risk. Risk is not always negative, but also could be about not recognizing an opportunity.
It's risk is not always negative, but could also be.
Right. Now that kind of a question you can see, you can quickly answer and save a lot of time going into the other question. Right? So that is very simple. Risk is not always negative, but could be not about recognition, and that is what we call performance, making use of the opportunity. So here the fourth one. ENM is a multinational mining company with operations across Asia and Africa. Currently, they are investigating the potential to commence a copper mine in South America. The popular government in this particular country has been in power for 20 years as there have been no elections. What 3 steps ENM should take to manage the long-term political risk, particularly the risk of expropriation in this venture? So, you are going into a country, this is what we call a political risk, a country where you go and after setting up, there may be certain actions which can be adversely affecting you. So, before you do that, so you are investigating. So, before you go into that one, what are the 3 steps that you should be looking at?
Seek consultation with local industrial and government representatives.
Yes, that's correct. That's correct, because that you will do it, because that way, that's a good thing for you to do, seek consultation, yes. What can you do? Remember, this is before going, and that before going will actually give you the answer straight away if you really look at it very intelligently.
Yeah. So then you do seek sponsorship from local business.
Yes.
In the country with the view to long term.
Okay.
And then seek local finances. Local financing from banks.
Yeah. So that's another one. And then of course there's another one, because there's another one. Commission detailed studies in the future predicted stability economics of South American country. So, but we have to use only 3.
Yeah.
So I think now we have 4. So we have
commission detailed studies of the future.
Yeah, I think that you will include it.
So, sorry, so I would basically get rid of the seek local financing from banks in South American country and basically commission detailed studies of predictability.
Yeah, I think that you will.
I didn't actually. Because I couldn't actually see that on my screen.
Okay, that's right. Yes. Right. That I will definitely agree with you. But I think another one, probably I think I will go to local finance, because that is one way to avoid a risk. All the time when you take local finance, you have a very, very safe network because you have taken money from that country. So the country's government will not put too much adverse reactions against you because they know that you have borrowed from the country. Understand?
Okay, yeah.
But I will drop that sponsorship from local business with the country with a way to ownership transfer, because that is actually something which I can do really when I go there. Before I go there, I can't think of getting sponsorship, but I can take the local financing. Local financing is always one of the best ways to mitigate your foreign risk. One thing is it stops your exchange risk, other thing is it stops your political risk. Now in Sri Lanka, we had a New Zealand company. They came here and they started manufacturing powdered milk food, right? So, but the local law says for their selling price, they have to go to the local regulator and get their selling price approved. So when they went just before these elections, couple of months before these elections, the local regulator did not approve the price increase. So what did the New Zealanders do? They shut down the operation and they went back to New Zealand. But they have borrowed money from Sri Lankan banks, and also they have entered into some agreements or some kind of arrangement with the local farmer to buy all their dairy milk. So the New Zealanders did not have to fight with the government. The farmer went and fought with the government, asking the government to bring those fellows back. And the banks went and fought with the government, saying, look here, they have borrowed money from us. Ask them to come and do the business. So the government ultimately had to go almost on the knees to the New Zealand and tell him, please come and restart the business. So that's a way to manage the risk. So local funding is a very, very important tool we have to manage the risk. Yeah? Now we come to the next question. Next question. At which stage of the CIMA management cycle? So remember we discussed the 1 to 7, right? Risk group, identification of risk, risk assessment, risk response strategy, implementation, monitoring, review and refine, and all that. So they're asking regression analysis. What is that one? A regression analysis. A regression analysis is basically, is it to identify the risk? Is it to establish the risk management group, or to understand the scale of risk, or what is it?
Identify the risk.
Identify. Can you identify risk with a regression analysis? What is a regression analysis?
No, sorry. Understand and assess the scale of risk.
Yeah, because it's a measurement, isn't it? Regression analysis really gives you a measurement. So it is an understanding as well. What about the Monte Carlo simulation? Monte Carlo simulation.
Now identify risk areas.
remember, just because you have 7, you don't need to have answer for everyone one answer.
Yeah. So, sorry, what is the Monte Carlo simulation?
Yeah, Monte Carlo simulation is also a kind of a risk management measure where you simulate it, the real performance, with a model, and to find out what are the possible outcomes going to be.
Okay, so in that case, then it's understand.
It is also a way of understanding and assessment of risk.
Yeah.
Third one, to maintain a risk register. You remember when we discussed something called the risk register. What is a risk register? Risk register is basically, actually it's a process of identifying risk. Every risk is identified and put it up in that risk register. And we try to even allocate the responsibilities. So I think that is basically a way to identify the risk again. By maintaining the risk register, you know, okay, this risk is this kind of a risk. Risk mapping. Risk mapping. Risk mapping is what we discussed earlier. The probability of it happening and the impact of it. What is
so
that? Yeah.
That would be number 3 as well.
Yeah. Again, yes, I think so. It is number 3. What is that? That's correct. It is understanding of scaling and assessment of risk. You are right. Right. So risk mapping is also that. Then the next one is transfer, evolve, reduce, accept.
Yeah, Tara would be number
5.
Would be number 4.
Number 4. Risk
number 5. Yeah, I can't.
Yeah. Sorry.
I can't see the screen. So
sorry. Number 4. Develop a risk response strategy, right?
Yeah.
Develop a risk response strategy. Then the next one is internal audit. What will they do in this strategy? Internal audit.
Number 6. Implement and monitor the suggested controls.
They are the monitors. So you are right. Right? They should be doing that one. So you can see these are the objective test questions. Now this question probably will have about 5 marks. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So the question probably will have 5 marks. That is how they, even though you have 60 questions, you have 100 marks. So some of these questions will have more than 1 mark. So the next one, H Limited is a multinational IT company with operations in over 60 countries worldwide. They source equipment across Europe, America, and Asia for sale to end clients as standalone infrastructure or as part of the service management deals. Transfer prices set at source can be sterling pounds, US dollars, or euro. Transfer prices are revised every month. Sales cycle is typically 3 to 4 months. What does it mean? 3 to 4 months means once you sell to collect the money, it takes about 3 to 4 months. How should H manage the risk presented by this scenario? Select all that apply. Select all that apply. So what are the things that you should be looking at? Do nothing, everyone else in the same situation? I don't think that's the right thing, isn't it?
No.
That I don't think. Set up unilateral netting so that the central treasury balances all trades before any monies are transferred. Now this is all over. They have operations happening over 60 countries. So they are buying products from various countries, and they are settling it in sterling pounds or dollars or euros. So set up unilateral netting so that central treasury balances all trades before any monies are transferred. I think that's a way that they will manage the risk. Because if you have some money in your UK account, before you transfer the money back to your home country, wherever, you will see whether there are any UK liabilities to be settled with the sterling pound, and you will settle it. That is what we call unilateral netting. Yeah? Unilateral netting. You don't transfer and again transfer back, because you see that you have balances in the UK, but maybe not that particular subsidiary. Some other subsidiary has bought some goods and you want to settle it in sterling pounds, so you will settle it with that money that is in there. So that is what a centralized corporate treasury will do. Establish accurate sales forecasting to avoid over-purchasing or stocking.
Yes.
Yeah,
that'd definitely be one.
Yeah, because that is definitely going to be one, because you don't want over-purchasing or stocking to happen. So, and because the sales cycle is going to be typically 3 to 4 months, so you don't want lot of stocks to be there. So definitely you will do that one. Yes, you're right. Establish a JIT build process for all major items exceeding certain value. Establish a JIT build process for all major items exceeding a certain value. Yeah.
I would also do that as well.
Yeah. Okay. What about the next one? Establish a short time lead time for high volume items.
Yes.
Yeah, that you will do it. Factor stage payments on delivery based on foreign currency translation at that day. Factor stage payments on delivery based on foreign currency translation at that day.
No.
I don't think you can do that one. I don't think you can do that one. So probably you can do the other things what you said, but not this factor in the stage payments, because these are big payments. I don't think they will agree for delivery dates and the payment. Yeah. So the question number 7 is it's a repeat. So I'm not. It's the same thing. It has come up. But let's look at the question number 8. MPLC manufactures a company has had some problems with defects in one of the products it produces. This product had been made by the company for many years and is profitable. Last month, over 300 defects were reported by customers, which is more than 15% of the product sold. This is a reputation risk for MPLC. So they have been selling this product for many years and very profitable product. But last month, something has gone wrong. 300 defects reported by customers, which is more than 15%, so something which is extraordinary, and there's a reputation risk. Which of the following risk mitigation strategies should the company follow? Which of the following risk mitigation strategy should the company follow? So you can only put one answer, not risk management strategies. Which of the following risk mitigation strategy you are going to follow? Accept the risk, as this is only one of several products it produces. Is it a right approach?
No.
No. Reduce the risk by more frequent maintenance of the machines used to make the product.
Yeah, potentially this one.
Yeah, I think potentially that you might, because all this time you have been producing the product, so there are not have been problems. So maybe that it had been producing too long and the machines are becoming defective, and now it is right for you to do something. Reduce the risk. So I think that is something that you will probably want to do it. Transfer the risk by training the machine operatives more frequently. I don't think you can transfer the risk by training, because the operators are own people. Avoid the risk and cease the product which has defects. That also I don't think you are going to do it, because it's a very profitable product. Yeah?
Yeah. So you just go with number 2?
Yeah, you will go with the number 2. Reduce the risk by more frequent maintenance of the machines used to make the product. If they have asked for more, I will even probably think of the transfer the risk. Risk analysis about ranking. They put up a blank and the likelihood of risk occurring. So, how to complete it? The blank figure, result, impact, chance, cost. Risk analysis is about ranking. There's a blank and the likelihood of it happening. What do you think? What is the blank should be? Risk analysis about the result.
Impact.
Impact, yeah,
impact,
right. Yeah, because you saw the risk analysis is all about the risk assessment, is all about the impact and the likelihood. So the moment you see the word likelihood, you must know the next word should be impact. So that's the way that you should be looking at. So let's look at the number 10. It has started to offer a new service in response to pressure from environmental campaigners. Up to 5 years ago, many of the components sold by H contain toxic materials. Recent legislation in Europe requires components to be recycled in specific ways to minimize any environmental changes. HS told the customers that when they purchase new components, they can give the old components to H and the company will recycle them in accordance with the new legislation. This service has provided some good publicity for H and has featured in its recent social and environmental report. However, review of cycling procedures by internal audit has identified that many components, including some that contain toxic materials, are simply thrown away by H staff rather than being recycled. So you have to understand the scenario. They have got a very good reputation because they were going to recycle. But the internal auditors have now found that sometimes they don't recycle, they are being just thrown away. So select all that apply. This is a serious reputation risk. If this story reported in the press, it will damage the reputation of it. True or false?
Yes, that's...
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, there's an ethical risk because they are allowing toxic waste to be thrown out to be incorrectly disposed of. True, isn't it?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, that's true as well.
Yeah. The environmental control in H is strong. Now, environmental control means the top management's attitudes, actions, and awareness towards the internal controls and the process.
No.
I don't think it is very strong. If it is strong, it could not have happened. Right?
Yep.
So no one will find out, and if they do, the company can deny it. That's not a right strategy, isn't it?
No.
Yeah. If the company releases the story on its own record, this will mitigate any damage more quickly than keeping quiet and being discovered later. What do you think?
I would go for that as well.
Yeah, I think you must go for that one because you remember Toyota, the big thing what they did was they did not admit it initially. And that caused lot of problems for them. So it's way more ethical, more professional for you to admit we have done something wrong, but we are not going to do it any longer, and we are sorry for the affected parties. That's a more professional way, more ethical way, and that you should be going.
Yeah, and as long
yeah,
if they release a statement like that and also explain what they're going to do to actually rectify the situation,
and they must really say what they are going to do, and they must stand by it. So I remember there was a patient in the top CIMA. They had a similar situation. They went and apologized. They said they are going to do something, but internally the management decided that it is going to cost them so much for them to do it, and they are not going to do it. Now that is not good. That is, you are misleading the people. That's not good.
Yes.
You must do what you are going to tell. You must maintain what is being told. So that is what you will be working on. So these are the things that you should be looking at. Let's look at the final question. X Limited has a strong environmental and social policy. Company's annual report states that it will do its utmost to protect the environment and local communities. Issue with X Limited production process is very noxious smelling gas. 2 years ago, the risk manager advised the company that the local community was very upset and the horrible smell, which meant their children would not play outside when production was in progress, and they could not hang their washing out to dry because the gas made their clothes smell. There are several local communities situated around X Limited, 5 factories, which were threatening to take out advertisements in the press to tell people how X treated the community. X Limited chemists managed to solve the problem by adding another chemical to the process to remove the smell. The management accountant is now asking the chemist to remove the chemical as it is expensive, and so the company profits are reduced. This is typical accountants. But that is not you and I ought to be, right? He is purely looking for the financial cost saving, but we have to be more focused about the society. That is, despite the possibility that revenues will fall if the smell returns and X Limited customers switch to a less controversial supplier, and the reputation risk that will arise if the communities carry out their threat to tell the press about the smell. What action would be most ethical for X Limited to take now to reduce the chance of damage to X Limited reputation? So one answer only we can put it up. What action? The most ethical action for X to take. Number 1, exhibitor should remove the extra chemical without telling anyone and hope that no one complains about the smell. Is it okay?
No.
No. That is not good. That is not at all good. Exhibitor should ask chemists to experiment to discover whether they can remove the smell more cheaply. But
that could potentially be one.
Yeah, because that should be one, because if you can the problem with the smell. So because the finance manager's concern is the cost. So if you can do it with a cheaper chemical, it's all right. Exhibitor should take out its own newspaper claiming that the smell associated is not that bad. No, that's not good. Exhibitor should inform the shareholders that the cost of associated with removing the smell should give the shareholders the opportunity to vote on whether to stop using chemical. That is not a decision for the shareholders, right? That's you can't put the blame on the shareholders or pass the decision to the shareholders. It's a decision that the management must take. So I think the answer is that reduce that. Number two. Start looking for the cheap source. So this is the type of question you will find in the paper. So actually this I got it from one of the papers that was there. Out of the 60 questions, you can see about 10 questions in the area that we just covered up. Hopefully, let's assume that we will have a similar situation. If you can have 10 questions in that area, and I think it will be about 10 questions, that is going to, that will give us about 15 marks surely, should be comfortable zone for us. And when I say no calculations, nothing, it's just thinking and answering the questions. So I think last time we did about, on the risk we did it. So risk we had about 10, 11 questions, so which is a good thing. So now I want to go into the new subject, the corporate governance. Corporate governance. So do you have another half an hour available?
Yeah,
right, okay. So we start.
Because I know,
okay.
Because we're supposed to go for an hour and a half, isn't it? So.
Right, okay, no problem. It's all right. So we are going to look at the corporate governance, right? So let's look at what this corporate governance is. You remember we were discussing all the time that the companies must be properly managed. To manage the company, what we need is a system. System by which the companies are properly directed and controlled. The direction and control. Direction and control. They are the two key elements for a good company to work through. So who is going to direct? Who is going to control a company? So that is what
the chairman control.
Actually,
the chairman controls the board.
Yeah, the chairman controls the board. But if you really look at, ultimately, we are not really looking at the board. We are looking at the organization. So the organization should be directed and controlled by the board of directors. They are the people. They are the people who should take. Now, you remember that earlier question, that the question about that smelling thing. They can't give it to the shareholders. No, shareholders are not the people who are going to direct the company. Shareholders are not the people who are going to control the company. It is the board of directors who are going to control the company in a company. But in another charitable institution, it will be the board of governors. So whoever, you have to have a system. What is a system? That's a system. System is where you have an input, a process, and output. That's what we call a system. Input, a process, and an output. And that's what we call a system. So you must have a particular system, a methodical way by which the companies are directed and controlled. And that's all about the corporate governance. That is all about the corporate. So you can see, even before I tell you, the corporate governance is all about the board of directors. It's all about the board of directors. How they should behave, how they should smile, how they should report, how they should sit, how they should perform, how they should stand. Everything is corporate governance. Because they are the people to whom you have given your money, entrusted everything, and you want them to give you a return. So they must have a good way to direct a company. Their direction only will bring us results. If they don't direct, the company will go out of direction. If they don't control, the company will go out of control. And before the corporate governance was introduced in somewhere 1980s, 1990s, the companies went out of control. But it does not mean even today the companies are not going out of control. Still with all this corporate governance, the companies are going out of control. But it has been reduced to a greater extent because of the corporate governance. So it's all about this board of directors people standing or sitting and working out a good direction and a good control to the organization. So what we are going to look at is simply the direction and the control. Right. So why the purpose of corporate governance? So why we want corporate governance? It is basically to the corporate governance will make achievement of objectives more realistic, more effective, through very prudent management. It's not you're just doing haphazard management, carefully styled, carefully planned management, which is ultimately done with the purpose of getting your objective. And generally when we talk about corporate governance, we think of all the large companies in the world. But it does not mean that it has to be large. Even some of the smaller companies have applied corporate governance and they have been successful. And generally it is believed if you are applying corporate governance principles, you are in for good times. You are going to do very well. So what are the elements of corporate governance? What are the elements? So elements of corporate governance is ultimately the corporate governance should be managing and reducing your risk. So the corporate governance is married to management of risk. It is part and parcel and integral part of it. If you have good corporate governance, it is believed that the risks are properly managed. Good supervision and management. Best practice guidelines. What do you mean by best practice guidelines? No unethical things will happen in a company where there is corporate governance. No one will take a bribe. No one will try to give a bribe. And ultimately, when you set up that kind of good supervision and management, good setup on the reduction of risk, you should enhance your overall performance. And that is what all of us are there. That is why the directors are there, to enhance your overall performance. And you want to do it in an ethical way. You want to look after all the stakeholders. All the stakeholders. You are not only looking after the shareholders. You are not looking after only the directors, because the corporate governance came early, because earlier there was a problem. Most of the time the directors are looking after themselves. So that is not right. The corporate governance means the board of directors are going to look at every shareholder, every stakeholder, and safeguard your resources. What are the resources that inside a company? Financial resources, human resources, your physical resources like property, plant and equipment. Not only that, even some intangible resources like your goodwill, your branding, all that. So you must run an organization with these things in mind. And you should be willing to apply the code. So we are going to talk about the corporate governance code. You should be willing. Now there are certain companies who has a code, like in the earlier question, right? They have all the ethical things put it up, but they say no, let's assume that the shareholders will not notice it. Let's assume the environmental will not notice the smell. Remove the chemical and see what's going to happen like. That's not corporate governance. Corporate governance is you willingly, positively apply the code. And the end result, I think, is transparency. You are becoming more and more transparent. There is nothing that is, keeping you away. So when you do that kind of thing, you should not be having that kind of a lady with all surrounding, putting hands on the head, because you are managing your company in a proper manner. But if you don't have, you will end up with that kind of a scenario. So what are the driving forces of corporate governance? How did the corporate governance come into existence? Right? One is the globalization. With the globalization, you in UK, you have invested money in USA, but you have no way to find out how that USA company is doing very well. Because you are in UK, the distance. So the only way that you will know that your USA company is doing very well is by having insurance that that company is properly managed with good corporate governance. So because of the globalization of investors, there was a need for international corporate governance. So you in UK will invest in a company in China, provided that company is having corporate governance. You will go to the annual report and see whether they are practicing corporate governance. If the corporate governance is being practiced, you will have more confidence to invest your money. Because you have no way of going to China every 3 months to find out whether the company is doing. So, like this man who is at the bottom of the screen, you will be reading the report. And the corporate governance more or less emphasizes or make it very clear equal treatment for domestic and foreign investors. Because there are certain countries where the foreign investors are discriminated. So the corporate governance brings them as one set of codes for the organization. So whether you may be a foreign investor, you may be a local investor, it does not matter. The company is run in one style, one way for everyone. And one of the reasons why it came was purely bad financial reporting. You remember the company like Enron, what happened? Poor financial reporting, bad financial reporting, bad auditing. So the financial reporting that was given were totally misleading, false and misrepresentative. And the corporate governance will address issues of various individual country. Now, for example, South Africa, they are a country that is very, very concerned with their own community. So their corporate governance is more about the community. If you look at the UK, it's about the stakeholders, shareholders. If you look at the America, it's more about the shareholders and the lenders. So like that, the corporate governance will look at the individual countries, their own requirement. I suppose if they are going to do some corporate governance in countries like Sri Lanka, they will be more emphatic on things like bribery and corruption, because these countries are famous for those, bribes and corruption and all that. So the corporate governance code will try to restrict people giving bribes, accepting bribes, that kind of a thing. Some countries you don't need to say that because it is a very standard thing. You don't need to even tell that don't accept bribes because that is the thing. And another force were the large corporate scandals like Enron and the bank.com, all that, West.com, all those things that went bankrupt. What they saw was poor corporate governance. People not really working out. So that's what we need to work it out. So there are a couple of corporate governance theories. One is what we call the stewardship theory. So that is you have to remember all the time, the board of directors they have been entrusted with our money and they are running the company. So one theory says that the management, they are stewards. So if they are stewards, they should be working very much in the interest of the owners, right? So as a steward now, in the church or in some place, if you are a steward, it's not your interest you are looking at. You are looking at the people on whom you have the money custody. So that is what one theory. The board of directors are stewards of the shareholder. But that theory will not work very well if the shareholders themselves don't take any active interest. Now this was one problem with the company. Most of the shareholders, they put their money, they get a dividend, they get the annual report and they are quite happy. They don't go and ask questions, they don't go and check what's happening around. They expect everything to be done by the director. Now, if you are my steward, right, if I have entrusted my money to you, I should be asking, hey Majid, what happened to my money? What are you doing with money? How much did you invest in such and such project? what is the return you are going to get, right? That is what we call a stewardship theory. So the stewardship theory will not work if the shareholders are not taking active interest, and that was one problem that there was. Then the other one is what we call the stakeholder theory. The management takes a view they are not only responsible for the shareholders, but they are responsible for the larger, wider spectrum of stakeholders. You remember the stakeholders are the people who have interest in the strategy. So everyone and anyone who is interested in the strategy, the management takes responsibility. We have an interest to care for them. We have an interest to look after them. So the community, the employees, the suppliers, the lenders. So the management takes a wider perspective. The other one is what we call the agency theory. What is agency theory? Agency theory is, you director is my agent. I'm the shareholder, you are my agent. So as an agent, what is your interest? What is your interest, Majid? If you are an agent, say now you find these real estate agents all over. What is their interest? What do they do? Say you want to sell your property. You want to sell your property. You call your real estate agent and say, hey, I want to sell my property.
So he basically acts in the best interest he will act in the best interest for you.
Will he? I want to ask you that question genuinely.
Not always, because they're obviously looking out for themselves first.
Yeah, you're right. Because if I'm your agent, right? If I'm your agent, I'm not really thinking of you. I'm thinking of how much commission I'm going to get. Isn't it?
Yes.
I will sell it for you at a higher price. That is not because I want to give you a higher price, because I know I'm going to get a higher big commission. So I'm looking from my angle. That is what the agency theory makes. Agency theory makes agency is looking from the agent's angle. Having my priority, I will come to you. I want to see, right? Because now say as an agent, you are giving me a property for me to sell, and another person is also giving me a property to sell. I will say from where will I get my bigger commission? My interest will be much more for that party. Got the point? So,
yes.
So that is what, so they basically try to look after their own interest rather than looking after the entity, rather than looking after the shareholders, right? Only they will look after the shareholders when their goals coincide with the shareholders. So, obviously they will do well, if the shareholders and them both are going to gain it. But otherwise, they will be more interested. So, this is one problem we had in our corporate, because the people treated them as agents. So the agents, they were interested more about themselves rather than others. Actually, the right theory should be the stewardship theory, I would say. Yeah, stewardship theory. So that is the theory you should be really looking at. If you don't have that theory, you will have lot of problems in the organizations. So, I want to talk about the governance principles. So, even before I talk, you will know it's all about trying to achieve your strategic objectives. You want to have governance principles for one purpose, to achieve your strategic objective. That is why you want the governance. To minimize the risk. How do you minimize the risk? By having good control system. That is what the corporate governance is going to be. Right? Then you want to promote the integrity. Integrity means the truthfulness. You are not going to have this underhand transactions. You are not going to have undisclosed transactions. Everything is straightforward, complete dealings. That is what the corporate governance. And then you fulfill your responsibility to all the stakeholders. Right? You are going to minimize conflicts between stakeholders. That's not an easy job, having said. Right? You are going to have conflicts with the stakeholders. If you try to pay a big bonus, the shareholders are going to question you. If you try to pay a big dividend, the bankers are going to question you. If you try to do something against the environment, wanting to make a bigger profit, the environmentalists are going to question you. If you try to not to pay a dividend and to and to pay and to keep the money inside the company, the shareholders may question you. So it's not a very easy scenario, but this is what you and I are expected to do. We are expected to balance the responsibility and establish clear accountability. That is again transparency, lines of clear accountability. So everyone knows what they are going to do it, and to maintain the independence of those who scrutinize. Now, who is going to scrutinize you? Who the directors? Who is going to scrutinize the director? Because
the shareholders.
Yeah, the shareholders. How do they scrutinize them? What is the mechanism? They don't come and sit there, but they put up.
Yeah, they'll see the results.
Yeah,
and how things are going within the organization.
Yeah, to ensure that those results are good, what they do, they put two kinds of people. One is the auditors, isn't it? External auditors. They are the people who are scrutinizing the reporting statement and say whether the financial statement shows the true and fair view. One set of people. Who are the other people that is there in a corporate who can scrutinize you? The non-executive directors.
Yes.
Non-executive director. Because the non-executive directors are there to scrutinize the performance of the executive director. So, but to do that one, you must be able to maintain your independence. So the non-executive directors must be independent, the auditor must be independent. If they are not independent, surely they are not going to do it. And ultimately, at the end of the day, you should be able to provide accurate, trustworthy reporting. Accurate, trustworthy report. Because your investors and the other people are going to look at your report and take certain decisions. The purpose of the financial statement is to give useful information for the investors and the potential investors to take economic decisions. And for that, you must give timely, accurate information. If you give wrong information, they are going to take wrong things. And finally, but not the least, the corporate governance wants the people, the shareholders, to be more proactive. Earlier, all this time, they were rather inactive, I would say. They just come for the annual general meeting if they feel it. Otherwise, they'll get the annual report, they will get the dividend, and they are quite happy. But that is not what is expected of. You are expected to get involved, to more proactive involvement. So these are the things that you will probably expect it. So we will stop it here and we will continue on the corporate governance next time.
Okay.
Right? So we will, yeah.
We're meeting tomorrow at 9 o'clock, yeah?
Yeah, tomorrow we will meet at the same time for our F3 on the financial reporting.
Okay. Tomorrow, is it okay to start like 15 minutes early?
Okay, no problem. Yeah, say 8:45?
Yeah.
Okay, sure.
Is that okay?
Yeah, surely, no problem. I'll do it.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'll see you tomorrow at 8:45.
Okay, also, for tomorrow's lesson, what chapter are we
we are looking at financial reporting, and I think it is chapter 3, yes.
Chapter 3 in the textbook, yeah?
In the reporting issues, yes. We'll be looking at that one.
Okay.
Yeah. Corporate governance, I need to do more, but I will do it because I have about another hell of a lot of slides, but we will do it later. Next week we will do it.
Okay, and in terms of what I asked for, you should have it by next week.
During the week I will send you all the notes.
Okay, no worries. Thank you very much.
Yeah, right, yeah, okay. I'll see you tomorrow.
Okay, have a good day.
Take care, bye, yes.